We're back on the Pirates Sports Network as they gear up for this Friday night's contest against Howard University in the AT&T Nations Football Classic at RFK Stadium. Jeff Cunningham now joined by head coach Connell Maynor. And coach, a tough loss this past Saturday against University of Richmond. You had the lead at halftime. They came back in the second half and won the game. But what are some of the positives you can take from that contest?
The guys never quit. We kept fighting. We jumped out on them, got out on the lead, and we just didn't execute down the stretch. And we could play with anybody. We know our guys know and they understand that they can play with anybody in FCS football because Richmond is a good program, a very well coached, disciplined, always in the playoffs to win 8 games every year. They're gonna be in the playoffs again this year. And we might see him again.
Second straight game to open the season, at least 3 touchdown passes for Dave Watford. He had 3 against Richmond. But more importantly, through 2 games, the offensive line has yet to give up a sack.
Yeah, those guys are playing well. Coach Ramsey is doing a great job with those guys and the schemes that we're trying to do. And they really understand the defense and how to pass people off. And they're doing a great job of protecting Dave. He's getting hit a couple of times, but and a couple pressures, but no sacks. So those guys are doing a great job. And then Dave is helping out also, moving in the pocket, working the pocket, and then every now and then he'll come out of there.
A lot of bells and whistles going along with this game. It's a neutral field game. You're playing in an NFL stadium in RFK, national television, ESPNU, 1,000th game in program history. But at the end of the day, conference play starts Friday night, and your first conference game is against rival Howard. What's the mindset as you shift from non-conference to conference play?
It's the same, actually. This is our next game, which is always your biggest game because your next game. But, it's a conference game, so it's a little bit more than, last week's because it was a non-conference game. This game right here can affect how we finish this season. So, we must go out and play well. And if we go out and play well, take care of the football, tackle better, we have a good chance to come away with a W.
We talk about Howard's first 2 games. The scores are quite lopsided, but you have to keep in mind they've played a pair of FBS opponents so far. So what is it you look for when you examine tape of Howard, keeping in mind the caliber of competition they face so far?
Effort, or the fight they had in them, or did they quit? What kind of effort was they giving against those guys, and was they beat mentally, or just physically, or did they make a lot of mistakes? What was going on here? Why they scored so many points, or why they didn't score any points, or get a lot of yards? And I thought they quarterback threw the ball well against BC, and they dropped a lot of balls. So they could have had a lot more yards. I think they only had 11, and. But, the quarterback made some throws, and, they was there. They had people open. They just didn't execute. So they got a lot better team. And when you see stuff like that, you say, okay, these guys can throw the ball down the field and move and protect for the quarterback to throw the ball down the field because they did it against the FBS football program. So you understand that they got a good football team. They were just overmatched in the first 2 games.
Hampton football is in the middle of an exciting stretch. You had the in-state rival in Richmond, and now you open conference play with back-to-back rivalry games against Howard and Norfolk State. So in terms of motivation, it seems like it should be pretty easy. Is there a case where you have to kind of pull the reins in a little bit? You feel like the guys could get too excited?
I don't think so. Right now, the guys, they was ready to go this week. They came out Monday morning early and was enthusiastic and ready to practice. Kind of had already put the Richmond game behind them, and it was a pleasant scene to see those guys ready to go, motivated, understanding that it's a conference game, and we do have a game this week, and we can't live off last week if we blew them out 63-0 or if we lost 63-0. We got to play this week, and I thought the guys came out ready to go.
How do you balance the disappointment of losing that game with the realization I think some of the players had of we can play with anybody?
Well, it's just one game. It's one game, whether we won it or whether we lost it. It's not going to affect our MEAC outcome. and it's not going to affect our playoff outcome. We can still make the playoffs. We can still win the MEAC. We can still go to the Celebration Bowl. The only goal that it really hindered for us from getting is going undefeated. So, we're over that, and we understand it's just one game, and we're ready for Howard University.
What's the biggest key of Friday night's game?
Tackling well on defense, offensively taking care of the football, no turnovers, and then special teams. We got to play well on special teams also.
It's head coach Connell Maynor as the Pirates gear up for this Friday night's contest against Howard at RFK Stadium. Kickoff is at 7:30.
See you there.
Welcome back to the Pirates Sports Network as we gear up for this weekend's football contest, the third of the season. Pirates head up to Washington, D.C. in historic RFK Stadium for the AT&T Nations Football Classic. Hampton versus Howard, Battle of the Real HU, live on ESPNU. Kickoff at 7:30. I'm joined now by senior linebacker Keith McAfee. And Keith, first of all, tough loss this past weekend against Richmond. You were up at the half, had the lengthy delay. Richmond came back in the second half. Take me through the second half of that contest.
The second half was crazy. It definitely fell into the hands of the defense. We couldn't get off the field. We had a couple bad calls, but that we shouldn't even put it in the referee's hands. We could have got off the field a long time ago. A couple third downs, we couldn't get off the field, and they just held the ball for about 8.5 minutes in the fourth quarter. And then I knew for a fact that if we got the ball in the hands of our offense was going to go down and score. Richmond knew that as well. That's why they were so happy that they can keep the ball.
How do you balance the disappointment of a game you had a lead in falling out of your hands with the confidence boost that inevitably comes with the idea of, hey, we can play with anybody?
Definitely, we can't harp on it too long. But I feel like this past game definitely sent a message to everyone. Everyone thought that Richmond was going to blow us out. However, we knew for a fact that we could beat them, but we let it slip through our hands. Now we know, as well as everybody else knows, that we mean business.
Yeah, the big in-state out-of-conference game last week. Now you've got back-to-back big rivalry games to open conference play, Howard and Norfolk State. Looking at Howard specifically, what's the excitement level going into this game?
For me personally, my excitement level is at an all-time high. It's my last one versus Howard. My first game actually playing in college was versus Howard. So it means a lot to me. I'm pretty sure the freshmen really don't know what it means yet. They're not going to know what it means until they get into the game, actually. The atmosphere is going to be crazy. They really don't know what they're going to get themselves into. For everybody else, we have guys transfers on the game. Transfers. David Wofford, he's a transfer. He's from Hampton. He knows the rivalry. Jackson George, he's from Norfolk. He knows the rivalry. And a lot of guys who don't know, they're going to know after this game.
How much is added to that from the fact that you're playing in RFK Stadium, it's a Friday night, and you got the national spotlight on you?
It's just like practice with a lot more people watching. Like Coach Manning says all the time, it's just like practice. We're going to do what we do every day. It's just going to be a lot of people watching.
Talk about what's the biggest difference for the defense from last year to this year. You're top 3 in the MEAC in several defensive categories. What's the biggest difference you've seen from 2014 to 2015 on that side of the ball?
Leadership. Definitely leadership. Last year we had no leaders, myself included. I was definitely not a leader last year. This year I really feel like me, myself, as well as the rest of the seniors really picked up the leadership role and brought in the freshmen, and the freshmen have definitely followed suit.
How much of that comes from seeing it on the field? It's one thing to do it in practice, but once you get on the field in the game and then you see everything unfold the way it does the light bulb kind of go off for the younger players?
I think it does. I really feel like the younger players think that coaches say things just to say them, as well as older guys as well. However, just speaking off this past game, they know that whatever the coaches are telling us, it works. So we just have to keep carrying out what the coaches are doing.
Finish this sentence for me. The Pirates will win Friday night if they do blank.
The Pirates will win Friday night if they execute, if they finish. You can finish that sentence with many different words.
Senior linebacker Keith McAfee as the Pirates gear up for this Friday night's contest against Howard at RFK Stadium. Welcome back to the Pirates Sports Network. Jeff Cunningham here with senior running back Chris Dukes as the Pirates get ready for their third game of the season, the AT&T Nations Football Classic Friday evening in RFK Stadium against Howard in a big rivalry game to open conference play. And Chris Dukes, they're wasting no time getting into MEAC play. First two conference games against big rivals, starting with Howard.
Definitely. We're not really worried about the rival so much, just looking at it as a next game. It's a big rivalry for our peers and for our fans and for our community and school. But for us as players, we're just going to go out there like it's any other game and just try to dominate our opponent.
Take me back through last week's game. How do you balance the disappointment of losing the game that you had the halftime lead in with the realization that, hey, we can play with anybody?
It's definitely positive and negatives from the last week game. The positive is like you said, our team kind of find that confidence like, hey, we can compete with anybody as long as we execute and be, fundamentally sound. I don't think any team can really play with us. We made some crucial mistakes, had a couple calls that didn't go our way, but, we're not going to blame the refs. We blame ourselves. We had the game. We should have put them away, but we didn't. And when you don't execute down the stretch, things like that can happen. But, we're not going to really harp on the loss too much. Just looking forward to dominating Howard on Friday.
You start the season number 2 on the depth chart at running back. Now you're number 1 on the depth chart due to the unfortunate injury to Eric Carter. How's the mindset change between being the number 2 back and the number 1 back?
It's just, just become more focused, stay prepared at all times. And, you just got to do whatever it takes to, stay healthy. Ice bath, watching more film, and I'm ready for the load. I'm a senior. It's my year to shine, and I'm just looking forward to it.
The offense last year racked up a lot of yards, but a lot of those yards didn't necessarily equate to points. This year, a lot more points are being put up. You're top 3 in the MEAC in scoring offense, a lot of yards. You're 5 out of 6 in the red zone through 2 games so far this year. What's the biggest difference offensively from last year to this year?
It's just when we get in the red zone, just staying focused and about smelling that money zone. When you get in that red zone, you got to smell the end zone. It's money time, and, we got to bear down and just go get it. And last year we couldn't do that. We moved the ball up and down on teams, but when we got in the red zone, we couldn't finish. And, that goes back to summer workouts, finish through the line, finish your last set, finish your last rep. It goes back to all that ties in together. So, this year we're just taking it one play at a time. When we get in that red zone, it's money time.
Look at the Howard's 2 opponents so far this year, 2 FBS schools, more resources, more scholarships, bigger players, more athletic kids. How do you examine film of Howard when they're playing opponents that are on a different level from them?
It's just like any other. Football is football. Everybody put their pants and pads on the same way, whereas FBS, FCS. But when you're watching film, you just look at the little things, the things that they didn't do or they were trying to do. But, it's just any other game, just like you break down any other film. And, Howard's they're a good team. So, we're going to go out there with the mindset as if they're trying to, dominate us, which we're not going to let that happen. And so, we're going to play fundamental sound football on all 3 sides of the ball, offense, defense, and special teams, and we're going to leave RFK Stadium with a W. You
mentioned that. Howard's won the last 4 matchups in this series. What would it mean to you to get a win against Howard in your senior year?
Definitely means everything. I feel like Hampton University football program is at a turning point right now, and I can say that, I was part of that foundation. With things starting to turn around, Coach Mariner and his staff is doing a great job here. Players are buying into the program. And, to beat Howard, it's just another game. And, I just have bragging rights for a year, but it doesn't really mean anything if we don't win the MEAC and go on and play the bowl game.
Last question. Finish this sentence for me. Hampton will win Friday night if they do blank.
Execute and play fundamentally sound football.
Senior running back Chris Dukes as the Pirates gear up for this Friday night's matchup against Howard in the AT&T Nations Football Classic at RFK Stadium. Kickoff is 7:30 and the game will be broadcast live on ESPNU.